Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Dave Beavers. I'm with the Office of Facility Services, and I'm happy to welcome you to tonight's public input session for the renaming of Stonewall Jackson High School and Stonewall Middle School. I have the pleasure of facilitating the naming process for the school board, and we're happy that you're with us tonight. I'm joined by two naming committees. First, the Stonewall Jackson High School Renaming Committee, composed of Chairman at Large Babar Lateef, who is off camera just for a second, Adele Jackson from the Brentsville District, Jennifer Wall from the Gainesville District, and Lisa Zargapur from the Coles District. The second naming committee is for Stonewall Middle School and is composed of Chairman at Large Babar Lateef, Jennifer Wall from the Gainesville District, and Adele Jackson from the Brentsville District. For citizens making comments tonight, we have a Spanish translator available. Mr. Osuna, would you like to introduce yourself and announce your availability in Spanish for us?
Sure, sir. Muy buenas noches. Mi nombre es Carlos Osuna y soy el intérprete asignado en español para esta noche. Si usted va a hacer algún comentario y necesita que yo traduzca ese comentario al idioma inglés, por favor, hágalo saber en el momento de su intervención para yo incorporarme. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Mr. Osuna. Okay, next slide, please, Jason. First, a little background before we get too far underway tonight. School board policy governs our operations here, and it calls for the creation of a renaming or naming committee and notes that final approval of school facility names rest with the entire school board. So the committees will make recommendations, but the entire school board is responsible for approval. Jason, next slide, please. Regulation 854-1 tells us that the naming committee will be comprised of the chairman of the school board, in this case, Dr. Lateef, the school board member in whose district the unnamed facility or to be renamed facility is located, and any school board member whose district is overlapped by the attendance area for the unnamed facility or the to be renamed facility. In this case, Stonewall Jackson High School is located in the Brentsville District. Stonewall Jackson's attendance area overlaps the Brentsville, Gainesville, and Coles magisterial districts. Therefore, Ms. Jackson from the Brentsville District, Ms. Wall from the Gainesville District, and Ms. Zargapur from the Coles District, along with Dr. Lateef, Chairman at Large, make up the naming committee. In the case of Stonewall Middle, the school itself is located in the Gainesville District. The attendance area overlaps the Gainesville and Brentsville magisterial districts only. Thus, Ms. Wall, Ms. Jackson, and Dr. Lateef make up that naming committee. Next slide, please. It's important to note that the committees are charged with considering these naming criteria, but they're not limited to these criteria. These criteria include geographic elements, historical items, or names of living or deceased persons who've made significant service contributions. Please note that selection preference is given in the regulation to those individuals who've made significant contributions to the field of education, especially within Prince William County. Next slide, please. Our process is laid out as thus. The naming committee is charged with holding a community input session in order to solicit recommendations and suggestions from the public. That's what we're doing tonight, June 22nd, 2020, in a GoToWebinar format. Now, based on the level of interest and participation tonight, the school board has added a second community input session this Thursday, June 25th, also in the GoToWebinar format. If you'd like to find the information for signing up for that webinar, it can be found on the school division's website, pwcs.edu. Now, the naming committees will present their recommendations on June 29th at the school board meeting for information and action. And there will be an opportunity for the public to provide feedback to the school board in multiple formats for the renaming of Stonewall Jackson High School and Stonewall Middle School. And one further time, final selection of the name for the new facility is the responsibility of the entire school board. All right, next slide, please. All right, this slide is just for reference purposes, but shows you on the left Stonewall Jackson High School, located on Rixlew Lane in Manassas, and also Stonewall Middle School on the right, located on Loman Drive in Manassas. So you can see these two schools here are the ones that we're working to rename tonight. Next slide, please. Well, the next slide will show us that we're at the point where we're ready to receive community feedback. Now, we've had 71 folks sign up on our website to speak tonight. We had originally planned for 3 minutes each, but we've had to reduce that time to 2 minutes each per speaker in order for the school board naming committees to be able to hear from as many concerned parties as possible. We thank you for your understanding of this, and we want to give everyone a chance to share their thoughts and ideas. So what we'll do is we'll go through the list in the order that folks signed up to speak, and we'll call on folks. And at that time, your microphone will be live, and you'll have the opportunity to share your thoughts and justifications and suggestions for the school board naming committees. So Mr. Townsend and Mr. Stevens, I think you have the list of names for us.
We do have the list that we have here is Mark Mauser. I'll go ahead and unlock your microphone, and then you can begin.
Can people hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, hi there. I'm Mark Mauser. I've lived in this county for 46 years. I was born and raised here. I went to Stonewall High School, went to Stonewall Middle. My children attended Stonewall Middle. I have another child who's going to be attending Stonewall Middle. I think the school's name should remain Stonewall. I'm not going to give you a big eloquent history lesson on Stonewall Jackson. What I'm going to say is, here we just had last week, we're talking about a $42 million shortfall based on COVID for the county schools. I know the last school renaming cost about $500,000. And now we're proposing to spend, I don't know how much money to rename schools. I can tell you it's probably in the neighborhood of $1 million, $1.5 million, I would guess. You just put a new football field at Stonewall High School last year. Now you're going to tear that all up. And where does this end? I don't know. It sounds like the social justice warriors aren't going to stop until it ends. But you have Belmont School, Sudley School, Leesylvania School, all of which have connotations to slavery and Prince William County's past. So I would say to you, if you intend to head down this road, the financial cost, the financial burden for the county are going to be significant as we go upon, well, I don't know, maybe a 10-year renaming program for county schools. So, I would recommend, and I strongly recommend, that you keep the name Stonewall Jackson for the high school, and that you keep the name Stonewall Middle for the middle school. And that's all I have to say.
Very good. Thank you much. Thank you very much, sir.
Our next speaker is Julia Rondo. I apologize for the pronunciations. You are unmuted.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Joanna Rondo, and I'm a rising senior at Stonewall Jackson. And I personally think that the name should be changed, and I think that it should be changed to Arthur Reed Jr. High School. I believe this because he had a personal and sentimental connection to the Stonewall community. He was a beloved member of the security staff at school, and many teachers and alumni of the student body were positively impacted by Mr. Reed. I made a poll including the same idea with two other suggested names, which were Rixley High School and Sudley High School, that my IB history class and I came up with on June 5th. I got 255 votes, with 71% of the votes in favor of naming Stonewall after Mr. Reed. A student from class of 2018 reached out to me to tell me how much she supported the idea of Mr. Reed. She also told me that if it wasn't for Mr. Reed, she wouldn't be here today. I did not know Mr. Reed personally, but just her words alone showed me how awesome, caring, and impactful he was. Many other alumni and teachers have spoken such kind words about Mr. Reed as he cared for all of the students and staff, and they all cared for him back. He was a wonderful man who was loved by many, and I feel that it is only right to give him the recognition that he deserves and the honor of naming Stonewall Jackson after him. Thank you.
Thank you.
All of our next speakers are not available as of yet. Alina Luco.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Alina Luco. I'm a rising senior at Stonewall Jackson High School, and today I'm going to be speaking on behalf of the Student Activities Leadership Council as SALC president. The students of Stonewall Jackson High School have earned the right to choose our name. We are the ones learning and growing every day, and the name should be something we can take pride in. We do not ever talk about Stonewall Jackson because we're not proud of that legacy. We should have a say because we are going to the school. We want to go to a school that stands for something and that entails a name that we can be proud of. The Stonewall Jackson's community's desires should be the first and the only priority because we are the ones being impacted. The first article you guys stated mentioned avoiding the naming the school after a person. We tried to avoid that in our discussion, which led us to the Commonwealth and United High School names. However, if it was to be named after a person, it should be Arthur E. Reed. I've received input from the community through multiple surveys and petitions. I've received over 1,000 signatures for Arthur E. Reed and hundreds of signatures for the Commonwealth and United High Schools. My first suggestion would be the Arthur E. Reed Royals. Arthur E. Reed was a security assistant at Stonewall after he served in the Army as well as the Drug Enforcement Agency. He was beloved by many students and staff for his warm smile and welcoming personality. He believed in the good in all of us and was a strong believer in second chances. He sat at the front desk smiling and made everyone feel welcome from 6:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. He served as a barrier between bad decisions for a lot of students at Stonewall Jackson and help students turn their lives around inside and outside of school. No matter what changes and challenges students were faced with, Mr. Reed was there to give them advice and help them overcome it. Sadly, Mr. Reed passed away January 25th, 2018, while still serving our school community. He embraced and represented all that is good about our country and our school. His memory is kept alive through the many stories and contributions he made to keeping Stonewall safe, and he's also honored in his garden. I believe that Stonewall Jackson community should have a say in this decision, and I hope that the board strongly considers what the Stonewall Jackson community has to say.
Thank you very much.
So the next person we have who signed up and is present is Ms. Lila Kennedy. Ms. Kennedy, are you there?
I am.
All right.
Hello, my name is Lila Kennedy, and I would like to propose that we rename Stonewall Jackson High School to Mary Bowser High School and explain why we should honor this hero of the Civil War. Mary Elizabeth Bowser was a Virginia-born slave who was freed in 1843. As an educated free woman, she became one of the most successful spies for the Union Army. Mary Elizabeth willingly went to work for Jefferson Davis in the Confederate White House, knowing that her freedom and safety were constantly at risk, and she would memorize Davis's letters and military documents word for word. As a Black woman, she was never considered a threat by the Confederacy and used this critical underestimation to become an asset for the Union victory and eventual abolition of slavery. After her surreptitious efforts to end slavery were successful, Mary repeatedly spoke out against violent racism in the United States and in Virginia. She spent the rest of her life single-handedly committed to education and opened several schools for Black children in the state of Virginia. She was later inducted into the Military Intelligence Hall of Fame decades after her death. Mary Bowser High School would continue to honor our state's historic role in the Civil War whilst honoring one of our state's true unsung heroes. The contributions of brave women of color are consistently undervalued, and I believe that we have an opportunity as a county to make a statement and honor a Black Virginian whose contributions to the U.S. military were undervalued her entire life. Changing the name of our high school from that of a Confederate general to a strong, intelligent woman of color who helped ensure the Union victory and eventual abolition of slavery will send a huge message of empowerment and support to all students in Prince William County schools, especially our students of color. This is an opportunity to define our values as a county and give our school a name that we can all be proud of. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay,
And
looks
then
like
next,
we
yeah, go ahead,
got
Jason.
Matthew. You go ahead and unmute your microphone on your end. You should be able to speak. There might be technical difficulties there. Let's see if we can go to the phone. Oh, there you go. Mr. Brennan?
Yes. The whole thing is with everything going on, and my mom, who passed away a couple years ago, she worked at Stonewall Jackson High School for many years as growing up, and I've grown up in the area. Matter of fact, right down the street from Stonewall, and for a short time, I went to the middle school, Stonewall Jackson Middle School, and thing is, the whole thing that's confusing me is why the name. At this point, after so many years of being that name, why now, of all years, this is even being even considered, for it's just a name. I understand what it symbolizes for some people, but and still, to me, I'm just confused on this whole thing, and it's just been so long. In Stonewall Jackson, if you take away the fact that he was a Confederate general, what's wrong with the name Stonewall Jackson? And it's just for me, it's this whole thing, the way it even started to even change the name. To me, it bothers me, but under realization, as long as it's been that name, and just understanding. I guess if I better understood why at this point in the game you guys wanted to change the name, or it's even being brought up, because I know I have many friends that actually graduated from Stonewall High School, and just the history of the school itself. So I don't personally have any recommendations on what name to change it to if that's what's chosen. But I'm very I guess you could say, concerned on why it's even being changed at this point. And, you know, being from the area and knowing, you know, having friends and what have you. I didn't personally go to the high school, but I did go to the middle school. And, it is, Stonewall Jackson happened to be a Confederate general. And, I think the whole history of I guess.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Our next are Hold Peoples. Okay, you should go on the microphone and
Harold Peoples, you'll just need to unmute your microphone, then you're live.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you for allowing me this time. My name is Harold Peoples Jr. I'm a former pastor, and more importantly, I'm the father of an African-American daughter who has attended and graduated both Stonewall Middle School and Stonewall High School. I'm encouraged that the renaming of these Confederate icon named schools is being discussed, but I am moreover disgusted with the fact that there are those who choose to debate over whether or not these schools should be renamed. It pained me greatly to have my African-American daughter attend schools named after a person who would have rather enslave, abuse, and probably molest her rather than free her, help her, or educate her. It is the year 2020. We tout how great America is, yet we still have streets, highways, statues, and yes, schools commemorating slave owners and those who advocated and embodied racism. This should not be. This is a part of our history card, should not be used and should not have any validity whatsoever. Let these individuals be remembered in the museums as the hate-filled racists that they were. Let them be viewed as a shameful part of our history. Let them not continue to memorialize these historic racists as great heroes by allowing our educational institutions to bear their name. Though I'm glad for this positive action to rename the schools, I'm ashamed and deeply insulted that it has taken a long political process to change these names. Yet, I am heartened to know that there are many of us who have not given up the fight to change the names. You, dear board members, have an opportunity to begin righting some of the injustices heaped upon people of color. Will you take definitive action, or will you steep yourself in cyclical rhetoric, making no steps to correct this egregious injustice? As far as possible names for the school goes, whatever your available choices are, I encourage you to please choose to rename these schools after champions of justice and racial equality, schools that parents of all races will be proud to send their children to. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
our next speaker will be Keith.
Beau?
Good evening. I'm Dr. Keith Savage. I'm the senior servant at First Baptist and the co-chair of Voice. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I really appreciate it. We've heard the claims between heritage and hate, Southern culture and slavery, and the names and monuments honoring Confederate leaders and soldiers who fought against the United States wasn't done in 1865 or 66 with people saying that they were such great heroes that we need to recognize them. They were done during two specific periods. The first was at the end of the 1800s into the early 1920s. And what else was going on at the same time? Unprecedented race riots, murders, and lynchings of Black Americans. The 1919 Elaine, Arkansas massacre lynched 200 Americans based on a lie. The 1921 Tulsa massacre, we should all be familiar with. All this is happening at the same time of this explosion of Confederate naming of buildings and monuments. And the second was during the late 1940s to the early 1970s. We forget Reconstruction actually was working with over 2,000 Black elected officials in America. But then around 1877, the federal troops were withdrawn from the Confederate states. And right after that, the Black American voting went down by 90% due to violence. And so if you're wondering about the Confederate flag, it was essentially dead and buried until 1948 when Strom Thurmond reintroduced it. A staunch white supremacist brought it back to the Dixiecrat Party. So at the same time, Confederate monuments and buildings and namings are happening. 1963, George Wallace, who said segregation today, tomorrow, forever. And then all of a sudden, the segregation flag shows up over top the University of Alabama. In 1970, we had the Bradley versus Richmond School Board case, which was then overturned by the Fourth Circuit of Court of Appeals and affirmed by the Supreme Court. What else happened in 1970? Well, in 1972, we had a brand new high school in Prince William County. And guess what they named it? Stonewall Jackson, after a Confederate general. I want to suggest we rename this after Celestine and Carol Braxton, who are heroes and icons in this community, so that we might continue with our social justice, so we can stop hiding behind the truth. Thank you so much.
Okay, our next speaker is Roberta Haggerty. You might have joined by phone, so I'm not sure how this is going to work, but let's see if you can speak. I don't think we're going to get to that one.
So the next one will be Peter Beau, and your mic is live, Peter.
It's me. It's not working.
You're on. Mr. Beau, is that you?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Okay, awesome. Perfect. Thanks everybody for listening today. And I really appreciate all the voices that have spoke so far from both sides of the spectrum here. I wanted to just speak really quickly and just praise the process and praise the fact that we are finally recognizing that it's time to change this name. I grew up in this county. I've lived here mostly my entire life. I have a child here that's going to be entering into Prince William County schools. And to continue to just have this cloud of white supremacy hanging over our community every time we leave our house and we go onto a Jefferson Davis Highway or drive down a Stonewall Road or have to go to Stonewall Middle or Stonewall Jackson High School, when the reality is that we should not be honoring the Confederacy and we should not really be honoring any of these generals. I'm somebody that really appreciates history, and I'm somebody that would never want to see history rewritten. But the reality is that our history has already been rewritten. It's so awesome to see a school district that literally has a heritage built in white supremacy finally recognize that it's time for a change. Because the reality is that Stonewall Jackson, even though he was a great warrior and sits atop a hill in this city, still to this day, and I respect that, he was not a patriot. He fought against the United States. And the reality is that the narrative of the cult of the lost cause and the rewriting of the history is the reason that this name exists in the first place. So I'm so proud to see that we're finally going to change this name and recognize that this cult of the lost cause narrative, it needs to end, and we can do it right here in Prince William County. So thank you so much for considering a name change, whatever it is.
Very good. Thank you for your comments.
Elizabeth Johnson is our next speaker. You are live.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Johnson, and I just graduated from Patriot High School. And I would like to propose that the Stonewall High School be renamed after Dr. Ibram X. Kendi, a New York Times bestselling author and renowned anti-racist scholar. He also is an alumni of Stonewall Jackson, and there is a petition that has 535 signatures to rename Stonewall Jackson to his name. I think it would increase pride in both Stonewall Jackson and the school district as well. And for Stonewall Middle, I would like to suggest either naming it after Richard and Mildred Loving, the couple from the Supreme Court case that made interracial marriage legal nationally. And they lived in Fredericksburg prior to their exile to Washington, D.C. And another idea I have for Stonewall Middle is to rename it after the women from the movie/book Hidden Figures. The events in this book, or the events in this story, all take place in Hamptons Roads, Virginia. Mary Jackson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Katherine Johnson were all pioneers in STEM, helping us win the space race while also facing oppression and discrimination under Jim Crow laws. I think it's great that this name is finally being changed because it feels wrong and inappropriate to do this. So I commend the school district for agreeing to change the name. That's all I have to say.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Lindsay Cross. Just need to unmute your mic.
Let's skip back to Braxton. Okay, you should be able to be heard. Everything looks like it's on. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Is that you, Ms. Braxton?
Yes, it is.
Please.
But you didn't say my name, so I was just hesitating.
Yes.
But I'm ready if you're ready.
We're ready. Please go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, members of the Prince William County School Board. My name is Monique Braxton. Both of my parents have called Manassas home for a collective 155 plus years. My mother, Celestine, a longtime teacher and civil rights activist, died in Wednesday, January 15th of 2014. She was among the first African-American teachers hired to integrate Prince William County's teaching staff. I was that little girl who integrated the first grade at Baldwin Elementary School. My mother taught at Antioch McCray, Jenny Dean, Marsteller, Stonewall Middle, then retired from Marsteller after 33 years of service. During her tenure, she tutored students who were forced to be homeschooled due to illnesses such as mononucleosis. She sought scholarships for everyone, from community groups as well as members of her church, First Baptist Manassas. She wanted to help students seeking a collegiate experience. My mother's goal was to advocate for all children, enhance their self-esteem, and equip them with the knowledge to become productive and independent citizens. As you know, my dad is a Congressional Gold Medal recipient and U.S. Marine Master Gunnery Sergeant Carol Braxton. He was one of 20,000 African-American Marines from 1942 to 1949 who received basic training at Camp Montford Point in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Dad was one of the first dozen drill instructors there. He served in the Pacific Theater as well as the Korean War. As former Delegate Tim Hugo mentioned when honoring my dad at the state capitol, he left a segregated state and country to defend the liberties of some in America. Though he's 96, he's still very active in his church, the Marines, and the Masons. I know that you've honored several public servants in school namings, firefighters, police officers, and elected officials. I ask that now you choose a teacher and a Marine, Carol and Celestine Braxton, both an inspiration to Manassas and the county. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, our next speaker is Byrd.
Yes, this is Hudson Byrd. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
we can. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Hudson Byrd, and I've lived in Prince William County over 17 years now. And one of the things I've noticed is some of the naming of the schools, and I take pride in knowing that we have schools named Patriot and Freedom, and even can recognize and appreciate Battlefield High School. But I do want to point out that I grew up in Hampton, Virginia, and one of the things that I kind of always joke to friends when I moved outside of the areas, I said, I went to Robert E. Lee Elementary School, I went to Jefferson Davis Middle School, and we had a rebel flag as one of our symbols in my middle school. And then I went to college at Virginia Commonwealth University, and my dorm was on the same street as Monument Avenue. And those were constant reminders to African Americans such as myself and a number of my friends and family in the area of just of the bitterness that is and hate that can be spewed and seen within the state of Virginia and in the South. I noticed Stonewall Jackson name when I moved to Prince William County, and it was a bit disturbing, but again, I was used to it. I'm 51 years old, and that's just kind of what I've seen in Virginia. One of the things I'd like to, one of the names I wish to recommend is Governor Doug Wilder. Governor Wilder is not just the first African-American governor in Virginia, but was the first elected governor in the United States. And he did so, in Virginia, and he's still alive today. He was first a lieutenant governor, then a governor, and he served this state well. He not only attended state colleges in Virginia, attended Virginia Union University, but he's also a veteran of the Korean War and served our country well. So I would just ask that you consider Governor Wilder as a name for Stonewall Jackson High School. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
It looks like we Byrd. It looks like his sentiments them signed. We'll go to the next one.
Alexandra Wheeler.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, my name is Alexandra Wheeler, and I'm going to talk real fast. I'm a graduate of Stonewall Jackson High School, class of 2002, and I'm a data scientist by profession. So that means I help people use data to make decisions. So when you're making a decision, the first thing you have to do is figure out what you're trying to accomplish. Why do we name schools? Why don't we just call them Public High School 20109? Well, for starters, names are easier to remember, but it's also easier to distinguish between one school and another. One place I lived had East High School and West High School. Simple descriptions so you could tell the difference. So you could go to a football game and say, okay, I know who I'm cheering for. I know which marching band is better. But whether a school is East or West or named after a person, the school's name gives you something to be proud of, something you want to wear on a jacket, a diploma you want to put on a wall. Suffice to say, my Stonewall Jackson High School diploma is not on my office wall because I don't want my visitors to think I'm racist. There is a whole wide world of people out there who don't know the school, but who know the name Stonewall Jackson. So based on my thinking, we're optimizing for two things: distinguishing from nearby high schools and giving students something they can feel proud of. The former is pretty objective. We can pull up a list of all the high schools within 100 miles and make sure we're not copying anyone. The latter is subjective, and that's where the data comes in. We could survey students and alumni from Stonewall Jackson and ask, which name do you vote for? Which name would you feel proud to cheer for? And I'm willing to bet that as the graduating classes get younger and younger, fewer and fewer people are going to vote for Stonewall Jackson. And we should bias in favor of the students yet to come. I'm not saying we do a straight up popularity contest, school name, school face, ain't gonna happen. And I'm not saying we change the name every year, but it's been 50 years, so I think it's a good time. And I personally agree that naming it after people can be super risky. I'm afraid of everyone's Reddit history. But there are certainly individuals whose service to the local community and the world at large are worth honoring and celebrating. I hope that we can find and vote on a set of names that the students of today, tomorrow, and yes, even those of us from 20 years ago can be proud of. And I would be happy to help raise the funds needed to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next guest is Erica Bukva.
Hi.
Hi, please go ahead.
Thank you. My name's Erica Bukva. I live in the Gainesville district. I'm a parent and I'll have a child next year at both Stonewall Middle and at Stonewall Jackson High School. I want to express our support for changing the names of both schools. It's time to leave the Confederacy in the history books. We want to glorify heroes who reflect the values of our community, and let us commit to the students at these schools and throughout the whole county that the schools will be named for figures that they can be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, the next.
Next one is Tracey Turner. Microphone is on. We can hear you.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome, great, thank you. Hi, my name is Tracey Turner. I live here in the Bristow-Braemar area. I am a longtime resident of Prince William County. My parents moved here from Minneapolis, Minnesota back in 1975. And I started school in Prince William County in 1976 here. I grew up in Sudley and I went to Sinclair, Stonewall Middle, and Stonewall High School. And I agree with the decision to change the name because I think this is a great opportunity at this time to change the name for the school because I understand what's going on. And so I've heard a lot of people mention like changing the names of people to people. So maybe I haven't read up enough on this, but I'm thinking we should change the name to Manassas Middle School and Manassas High School. I think this keeps in with the naming convention that is going on in the community. Like we just named Gainesville, the new high school. We also have Woodbridge High School. We also have Woodbridge Middle. We also have Coles District, and we also have Brentsville. And there's other schools, you know, such as like Manassas Park, Manassas Middle, which are not in the county, and I understand that. So that's my suggestion. The other thing I would like to add is that I've listened to this. I've never heard of Arthur Reed. And maybe it's because I graduated too early. I just wanted to mention that. But thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Our next speaker is Tim Laughlin.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi. First, I just want to say I'm really proud of the students that are making their voices heard tonight, and I hope the school board will give them a lot of consideration. I also want to thank the school board for taking swift action recently on some school personnel who are making some pretty hateful statements. So thank you for that. I am a resident of Prince William County and the father of 3 young children who will go through the Prince William County school system. My kids are the descendants of slaves. So it's unfathomable to me that my kids could go to school in a system that has schools named after someone who fought tooth and nail and was literally willing to die or kill to preserve the right of one group of people to own another group of people. So I wholeheartedly support the renaming of these 2 schools, and I would just like to offer the following 3 names for consideration. First is Dred Scott, Virginia native, slave, who unsuccessfully sued for his and his family's freedom. Douglas Wilder, obviously our first Black governor, and then emancipation. And with that, I give you back the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next guest is Maria Sidney.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening. My name is Maria Sigmund. I'm a rising senior and the president of the Pure Diversity Club at what will no longer be named Stonewall Jackson High School. I propose that my school be the Reed Memorial High School. If you are not aware, Arthur Reed served our country as a war veteran before having a career as a federal law enforcement. When he retired, Mr. Reed became a security officer at Stonewall for 13 years before passing away while he was still working at my school. Mr. Reed was beloved by everyone. The students called him Grandpa. The staff viewed him as an extraordinarily loving coworker. To quote my former English teacher, he was nicknamed the Godfather of Stonewall after he passed away. I remember the day after he died very well. My second block teacher was overcome with emotion, saying that Mr. Reed was such a good man and that his sudden passing would make waves throughout the school for a long time. A year-long project was started immediately to create a memorial garden for Mr. Reed, but in my opinion, this is not enough to honor Grandpa. As students, we understand that the community has concerns about naming our school after a person. However, Mr. Reed was one of the most accepting and caring staff members the school has ever seen. He presented the very best of our student body through daily acts of kindness and treated everyone, no matter their background, with the utmost respect. Furthermore, we are asking the board to reject the name Manassas High School. I understand the thought in theory, name the high and middle schools after the same area for simplicity's sake. In practice, though, this is the least acceptable name. The high schools closest to us are Manassas Park, Osborne, and Osborne Park. Sadly, I cannot tell you how many times I got over which school I was playing that day, just because of their nearly identical names. Naming Manassas High School will only add to the extraordinary confusion. Finally, I would appreciate it if the board would consider the wishes of current students above all others. Many in the community, our own neighbors, have either abandoned our school or never gave it a chance. We, the students, are the school. Our school motto is one of us. By naming our school Reed Memorial High School, Mr. Reed will remain one of us. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
My next guest is Richard Jesse. Are you ready, Mr. Jesse?
Yes, I'm Richard Jesse. I live in Occupying District. I support the renaming of either one of the two schools after Celestine and Carol Braxton. I met the two sometimes in the 70s when I was a member of the First Baptist Church of Manassas. I visited them at their home several times. With respect to Mrs. Braxton, I had no idea of all her civil rights achievement until her funeral. It was an extremely long funeral due to the vast number of significant elected officials and others that sent condolences acknowledging her work in advancement of civil rights. I sent each board member an email with a link to her obituary listing some of these advancements. She has made a significant contribution to the education of Prince William County schools. Although I was an active duty Marine officer at the time, I had little, if no knowledge that Mr. Braxton was one of the first Blacks to help integrate the Marine Corps. I only learned and was taught that Parris Island and San Diego was the only two boot camps that the Marine Corps had. That was not true. I knew nothing about the third boot camp solely for Black recruits. In fact, despite serving for 3.5 years as an enlisted Marines before attaining my commission as a Marine officer, I didn't even know about the history of segregated boot camps. You may look him up and watch several YouTube videos about him. I hope that you take this opportunity to name someone. I understand several board members have gone on record to say they don't want to name any more schools after people. For those members that were on the board before the naming of Cogan and Jenkins, you are hypocritical if you take that position. It is strange that some of you fell over your feet to make those namings and announce it before the board voted. I have no issue with you having a favorite, but I do have issue when you choose your position with the status of the person being considered and political advantage to be supported. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next guest is Alina Jones.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Elizabeth Davis Jones, and for the past 10 years, I've had the honor and privilege of serving as a reading specialist at Stonewall Middle School. And I am so glad that the name is going to be changed. It is long overdue, and I encourage you not to repurpose the name. As I thought about the needs of my students, every week my students and I explore the importance and the power of words. And I tell them that each generation must be critical and must analyze biases in society in order to change. That it's not enough to topple a statue. You can't just push it over. That doesn't make change. It's what they decide to do and how their words are used. So tonight I ask you to consider the meaning and the connections that are associated with the name, but also consider the connotation or the feeling that a name brings to the person that is there. As I thought about what my students and my fellow colleagues might need, I thought about the historical surroundings of the area and thought about the municipal sulfur springs that were there. People would actually travel here to be healed. So I recommend that we consider naming the new school Sulphur Springs Middle School. It would provide students an opportunity to learn, but as we come back out of school closures due to the novel coronavirus, we will need a place to heal. Sulphur Springs Middle School sounds pleasant and peaceful. It sounds like it's a place where teachers can nurture their students, because we do. It would also allow us to have a new mascot. This mascot could be a field sparrow, which is also native to Virginia. They are known for their beautiful song, which reflects part of our music program. And as an IB school, sparrows also symbolize community, self-compassion, and strength in working together. So I think that we should be allowed for the faculty and the students to begin a new school year with new leadership and a new name that supports and empowers all.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Our next
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, is this Miss Scott Adams?
This is not.
Oh, Tess Miller?
Tess Miller, yes.
Please go ahead then.
Okay, all right. All right. Good evening. My name is Tess Miller, and I'm a former student and now teacher at Stonewall Jackson High School. Most schools are named before they have created their identity, but we are in a unique place to name our school after our identity has been developed. While I want to advocate for the students' ideas, I want to take this time not to explain those ideas, but to tell you about our community so you can choose a name that truly reflects who we are. Our school has been fighting a terrible reputation since before I entered high school over 10 years ago. I don't know where it came from or why it has stuck, but our community has risen above it. Anyone who goes there knows the truth of the unity and diversity that exists within our school. We are a school where students paint the walls to show their unity and diversity. A school where our students work together to celebrate different cultures and educate one another about where they come from. A school where teachers and staff believe in the potential of a student rather than just their accomplishments. A school where students do not hesitate to use their voice against injustice. A school that produces leaders that succeed at the next levels of their education and life, including the student presidents at UVA, Shenandoah, and Virginia Tech. I hope that you can help select a name that reflects who we are. The students propose United in Commonwealth, which both promote unity and diversity and show the inclusivity that we strive for. Both, if you were to name it after a person, both Dr. Renee Lacey and Arthur Reed both always believed in the good in people and tried to reach every student, especially those who needed help the most. No Child Left Behind wasn't a law to them, but it was who they were and what they fought for. Our students are unique and passionate. They are activists, they are artists, they are thinkers, they are caretakers, they are visionaries, they are dreamers. They found a way to take pride in a school that was named after a person who fought against everything they stand for. Now they deserve a name that they can be proud of. I hope you can make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next guest is Kenny Miller.
Hello, how are you tonight?
Good, thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Kenny Miller, and I am an alumni of Stonewall Middle School and Stonewall Jackson High School, and a current teacher at Garfield High School. I would like to advocate for a name for each of the schools being renamed tonight, or not tonight, but soon. And I would like to say that I feel the current students' opinion should carry the most weight with the board. I think it is clear that their favorite option right now is Arthur Reed, as shown by a petition that has over 1,100 signatures on it right now. Mr. Reed was a great man who has had an impact on thousands of students, myself included, and is well deserving of this honor. I would personally like to propose Dr. Renee Lacey High School. Dr. Lacey was the most honorable woman I ever had the pleasure of meeting. She always tried to reach the students that other educators had written off as lost causes. As director of alternative education, she worked to change the stigma of alternative education from being a punishment to being a new opportunity. No child in this county was ever allowed to fail if Dr. Renee Lacey was involved. Personally, I have to thank Dr. Lacey for giving me my first opportunity to work for Prince William County Schools. After my freshman year of college, she offered me a position as a TA in the Grad Academy summer program. I still remember when she personally called me to offer me the job, and when she came to check on me to ask how my first week of work was. The fact that the director of all alternative education for the entire county was willing to invest that much in a 19-year-old TA shows Dr. Lacey's true caring nature. I'm a better teacher because of what she has taught me, and this is a better county for what she has taught all of us. This woman deserves to have more than just a library named after her. Secondly, I would like to suggest naming the middle school after Justice Sonia Sotomayor. Justice Sotomayor would be the perfect choice given the school's demographic makeup. Many of the students can identify with her story as a child of immigrants. And not only will students be able to identify with that story, but they will be able to look up to her success and see that they can achieve greatness. There are many schools named after Thurgood Marshall as the first African-American Supreme Court Justice. There will be many named after Sonia Sotomayor as the first Latinx Supreme Court Justice. Why don't we start that trend? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next guest is Lori Stern.
Good evening. I'm Lori Stern, a teacher at Stonewall Jackson High School, and I'm providing input for the renaming of Stonewall Jackson High School on behalf of 137 staff members and community members. The first important note is to simply say the staff I'm representing at Stonewall almost unanimously agrees it's time for a name change. The staff feels strongly that our students should not have to walk into a building honoring a man who fought to enslave some of these students' ancestors. It's time that this fact is recognized and then rectified. The Stonewall Jackson High School staff would like to suggest the following 3 names. The first choice is Cannon Branch High School. This represents a geographical feature. It's a creek near the school. The word cannon, while related to history, is neutral. It acknowledges Manassas had an important role in history. The staff like the sound of the name, and some are thinking of the mascot could be the Express, which is an acknowledgement of the proximity to the Manassas Railroad and the historical importance it has to Manassas. The second choice is Unity High School. The ideal represented here is that our students from various backgrounds all over the world have come together to stand up for what they believe is right during recent events. Events such as outrage over the perceived slight of the boundaries proposed, as well as the recent civil rights issues, the word unity describes a culture students and staff are very proud of. The third choice is Mr. Arthur Reed, a beloved security staff member at Stonewall. Mr. Reed became a grandfather figure to so many, as you've heard, who needed that role filled. The staff and students both would be very happy to honor him in this way. It should be noted that Mr. Reed's name is the only common suggestion of staff and students. He was important to every person at Stonewall Jackson High School. Finally, I want to emphasize again and repeat what one of our students, Alina Luco, said. Stonewall students and staff have earned the right to have a say when naming their own school. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next guest is Catherine Davis.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to participate. I would like to submit 2 names, Lucinda Griffin and Celestine Braxton. I live in the Gainesville district in the family home, which my father built 55 years ago. We are located at the crossroads of Bethlehem Road and Ballsford Road. Artifacts from the Civil War have been found in our neighborhood, and I am surrounded by immense Civil War sites, artifacts, and home sites, many belonging to the Griffin family. I recently gained knowledge of the significance and importance of the contributions of the Griffin family to the Civil War, and more specifically, Manassas in general. I recently found out that a member of the Griffin family, Lucinda Griffin, was the first Black to be wounded in the historic battles of the war right here in my neighborhood. I have known the Griffin family most of my life, and I applaud the Griffin family for championing, such a hero of their family. Passionately, I recommend that this board should change the high school name to Lucinda Griffin Senior High, not only because I know the character of the family, but because of the historic significance that Ms. Griffin has given to Manassas. Very few names of good people have been included on the pages of history books on the Civil War, but thanks to God, Lucinda is one of them. I am proud to know the family and honored to be called their friend. Regarding Ms. Braxton, as it's been already stated by her daughter Monique, she was hired to integrate the schools in Prince William County and dedicated over 33 years to education. She did teach at Antioch McRae, Marstella, and Stonewall Middle. She and her husband, Mr. Carol Braxton, were and are pillars in the community. Although I was never in any of Mrs. Braxton's classes when I attended Marstella, her presence invoked respect, and she respected us as well. So I do submit that you please change the names to Celestine Braxton and Lucinda Griffin. Thank you.
And our next guest is John Miller.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, Mr. Miller.
Yes, please go ahead.
As an alumni of Stonewall class of 2009 and a teacher and coach at the school, I wish to speak in support for this name change and that it happened now. This change is inevitable, and now is the time for it to happen. Not only does our community deserve a symbol that better represents them, but we, the faculty and staff, have been stuck in limbo for years now, wondering when this will happen. Just 2 years ago, the students began to raise over $12,000 to have a mural painted on the gym wall, as all the new schools in the county come standard with now. This project was put on hold due to the excellent leadership at SJ, foreseeing exactly what is happening right now. I beg you, do not falter. If you do, how much longer will this community have to wait to have peace of mind? These improvements are a matter of equity that have been denied. This is a fantastic time to rebrand the school entirely. I have also heard that the mascot may not be changed. I believe this is a mistake. Whether it is a reference to Quantrill's Raiders or not, the connection is obvious. Moving into the future, the name of the mascot should have no connection to the Confederacy, and I believe it should change. Which leads me to my third and final point. As someone who has coached multiple sports and taught SLC at Stonewall, I can tell you how hard some mascots are to create a brand around. What is a Raider? I'm glad someone at the school had the good sense to get rid of the gray uniform that came with our mascot when we purchased it. But that leaves us with a handmade maroon uniform as our mascot. As you go through this renaming process, please keep in mind the implementation of the mascot, both physically and in logos. As for specific recommendations, I hope that you will keep in mind the population of students that we have at Stonewall. I would suggest either Sonia Sotomayor or Roberto Clemente High School. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Our next guest is Linda Wilkins.
Hi, thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, great. Good evening. My name is Linda Wilkins. I attended both Stonewall Middle and high schools and graduated from the high school in 1992 under my maiden name, Linda Wright. As a society, when we make a deliberate choice to name an institution after a human being, we do it for one singular reason: to honor that individual. To argue that the naming alone does not condone the individual's behavior is a falsehood. Naming institutions after Confederate traitors does not ensure that history is not forgotten. It purposely masks the true nature of that history and rebrands these rebels as heroes, which they decidedly were not. They were categorically wrong in their desire to split apart our founding country, and they failed miserably. So they were traitors and failures, nothing more and nothing less, and they were completely unworthy of honor or glory, both then and today. I have admittedly listened to those opposed to changing these names, not necessarily here tonight, but in other forums, belittle and dismiss the continued racial inequities that exist in our country, but we're not here to debate whether racism exists, so I'll refrain from further comment on that willful ignorance of reality. Mr. Mauser. I will, however, point out the hypocrisy of those who claim that changing these names won't change the history of our country, while simultaneously asserting that such a change will somehow negatively alter their own individual history or remembrance of their time and experiences as a student in these schools. These arguments are not only illogical, but they express both race, privilege and racism in the false idea that their own beliefs and feelings are more important or more valid than the countless minority students who feel marginalized and discriminated against attending a school named to honor a person who clearly did not respect or value them as equals. I agree that nothing will change our history, either collectively or individually. It's impossible to change the past. What we're attempting to do is change the current experience of those who attend these schools now and in the future. I would like to commend all of the students who've spoken. I personally recommend renaming the schools in honor of Ibram X. Kendi, an esteemed scholar and alumnus of Stonewall High School, but support any name not associated with the Confederacy or the perpetuation of racist ideas. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next guest is Amy Martin.
Yes, hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
okay,
we can.
so I am the mother of a student who will attend the IB program at Stonewall. We are not longtime residents of the area, but I will say that some of what the students have said, or even other people have said, is very true about there is a stigma to Stonewall Jackson High School. I have honestly heard that it is not because of the name. From what I've heard in our neighborhood, a lot of people thought that the name was the only good thing about the high school. I do not have a name to recommend, and I have no strong feelings one way or the other if the name was to stay the same or to be changed. My biggest concern is that Stonewall Jackson High School was promised a remodel, and they have been asking for that, from what I understand, for several years. And with there being a shortfall now in the education budget for the county and the remodel that was promised, I would like to know where these funds are coming from. I've sent a couple emails and not heard back. So my concern is, now with the renaming, does that mean that the students are now not going to get their remodel, which has been promised and asked for a long time? So I just would want to make sure that the funds are not being reallocated, the funds that were supposed to provide the students with a better learning environment and have pride in the actual building and not feel like they're going to a prison, which several students have said that they feel like they're going to a prison when they go to Stonewall Jackson High School. I would just hope that those funds are not reallocated to change the name.
Very good, thank you. And I can address that those projects are still in the capital improvements program that was approved by the school board. So the answer is yes, still there.
Our next guest is Don Richardson.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, good. I will try to be brief because I've lost track of how many exercises I went to, and I know what you're up against. I didn't really have a recommendation for the high school. I've heard a number of excellent ideas tonight. One that kind of intrigued me as a historian and someone interested in all things intelligence related and spying was, I believe it was Mary Bowser. And that one kind of intrigued me as a name because it gets the history in there, but it also honors someone more appropriate to the community. What I would like to suggest for the middle school is to recognize a man who fought to preserve the Union, not destroy it, who fought to end slavery, not continue it, and who gave his life at the Battle of Antietam in the service of that cause. His name was Israel Bush Richardson, And he does have a connection to Prince William County because 3 days before the first Battle of Bull Run, he commanded the Union Brigade that fought at Blackburn's Ford, which most of you may know is where Route 28 crosses from Fairfax County into Prince William County and is only 4 miles away from the middle school. Now, I can send you a lot more background information on the man, but he was a fighter. He didn't fight from behind. He led his troops from up in front, and he gave his life to preserve the Union and make the nation a better place. So I would throw his name out there as a one possible name for the middle school. And I see I still have time left, so I will give it back to you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Richardson.
All right, Nash McCarthy. Nash McCarthy.
Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
All right. Good evening. My name is Nash McCarthy, and I'm a rising senior at Stonewall Jackson High School and co-president of Student Activities Leadership Council, or SLC. My suggestion for the renaming of the school is Arthur Reed High School. Mr. Reed worked at Stonewall for 9 years before passing away in 2018. Mr. Reed had a direct and lasting influence on the students at my school. However, when renaming the school, I asked that Prince William County and those involved in the renaming of our school dive deeper than the surface and help change the school the right way. In the words of Dr. Waltz, words matter, symbols matter, and actions matter. With the renaming of our school, the words and symbols will be changed to represent something more appropriate than a Confederate general, but the actions matter too, just like Dr. Waltz stated. In the past, actions have not been spoken louder than words, and Stonewall may have been treated equally compared to many other schools in the county, but not treated with equity, which is, for one of the oldest schools in the county, is necessary in order for Stonewall to keep up. Student Activities Leadership Council, or SCLC, the class I'm co-president of, was forced to move the school pep rally outside 3 minutes before starting because our bleachers in the gym are so old due to our outdated infrastructure. Or during basketball games and other sports that use the gym, the scoreboard malfunctions and turns off, causing the score of the game to be lost, as well as the time left in the game. SCLC has taken it upon themselves to help update and make our school look nicer. Students of SJ have painted numerous murals around the school in hopes of making their school's infrastructure look better. I ask, with the renaming of our school, will we additionally receive new materials to better our education, or will our used materials be painted over with a different name and be called new? This renaming effort is based on ridding our county of racism and inequality, and it is time. But this cannot be limited to just words and symbols. Changing the name to Arthur Reed or Commonwealth or any other proposed name is a big step forward, but will the actions taken by this board also get rid of the inequality? This is a chance to turn over a new leaf for this school, community, and county. Please do not limit the progress to just words and symbols. This symbolic gesture is the right step and has financial consequences. These financial consequences of these actions to address my school's inequalities with infrastructure and resources has to be considered.
Thank you very much.
Our next guest is Matt Solomon. You need to unmute your mic yourself, and then you can be free to speak.
I just want to thank everyone this evening for coming together as a community to address these issues and do it, I guess, promptly. And I just want to just speak briefly to all the students and the teachers and just sort of apologize on behalf of the community that we haven't done this sooner. You know, the fact that it's taking us to 2020 to be able to address this is just, we're failing our students by waiting this long to have this conversation. And I do thank the board and everyone who's making the effort to get this change this long overdue for our community, and most importantly for all the kids and the students that are here. My daughter graduated from Stonewall. I was born and raised here in Manassas. And I come from a family of educators. And one of the things that I think we might want to consider is naming it the school for someone who came as a recent graduate and who I think overcame and wasn't necessarily the top of his class when he was getting out, but who has achieved great things ever since based on the foundation that he got at Stonewall, and that's Dr. Ibram Kendi. For those of you who don't know his story and his achievements, again, he's been mentioned by people earlier this evening, but I recommend that you read the article that was written about him in the Washington Post back in 2019. His is a story of growth as a person. He's an American author. He's a historian. He's a leading scholar of race and discriminatory policy here in America. He's currently the founding director of Boston University's Center for Anti-Racist Research, and he's going to be a fellow at Harvard this year. He's the author of 5 books. He won the 2016 National Book Award for nonfiction titled Stamped from the Beginning, The Definitive History of Racist Ideas in America, which has been described as the most courageous book to date on the problem of race in the Western world. And it implores us as citizens and as students to become politically involved. And I think it's time for all of us to turn the page and do our part to form a more perfect union and a better America. And what better way for our children to be inspired than by one of our own.
Thank you very much.
All right, our next guest is Sean Key.
Hello, esteemed members. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. My name is Sean Key. I went to Stonewall Middle and Stonewall High. I'm fortunate to still have my name in a case for the Mildred Green Award, Student of the Year, 6th grade. And my point is it mattered. School mattered. Integrity, honor, all of that mattered. And the thought that at any point, a child, especially of African-American descent, had to walk through either of those halls and be told you can be anything. And perhaps they ask, well, what does the school mean? What's it named after? Stonewall Jackson, someone who fought for the Confederacy, that if they had their way, you never would have been able to receive an education anyway. I applaud the courage that you have to make this change. You heard the name Lucinda Griffin, and I want to say something. It's important that a child is able to look at the name of a school and identify. And we've talked about a lot of adults, a lot of generic names. Lucinda Griffin, who you heard, is 14 years old, slave girl. She was loaned from the Comptons to Judith Henry of the Henry House that most people are familiar with on the battlefield. She risked her life and was wounded, receiving a serious arm wound she would carry the rest of her life to save this slave owner woman. She didn't run from the fight. She ran to it. Jim Robinson has the Robinson House and placards. Great gentleman. But you know what? He ran and hid under a bridge. Nobody knows Lucy's name. They know Stonewall Jackson, who, by the way, received his name only 150 yards from where Lucinda performed this courageous act. This is a person to me that if you can say, let's take a slave girl who basically was lost to time, has not been heard of. Her grave, by the way, was pretty much abandoned until the family was able to refurbish it and get it at least, respectably identifiable. To say to someone that that person who did something so courageous but was lost to time now graces the name of a school. And it's a child, once again, that another child can identify. It says to that child, if you have the integrity, honor, and courage to do the things that this school stands for, you too may have your name on a building or somewhere else someday. I think it's monumental that we're getting away from Confederacy, but let's stick with the name and have the courage to honor someone who really contributed something significant and was not known to most people. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Barbara Larimore is our next guest.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Barbara Larimore, and I live in the Brentsville district, and I'm the mother of 3. I wanted to speak today in support of changing the name of Stonewall Middle School and Stonewall High School. I'm very encouraged by the suggestions. I'd like to also put my vote in for Ibram X. Kendi. I think that would be a great suggestion, but I also am for the listening to the students and the staff and their suggestions, because I think their voices are very important as well. A lot of what I wanted to say has already been said, but I just wanted to challenge the few people who are on this call who wanted to keep the name. And it just kind of occurred to me that during this time of growth and upheaval in our country, that every conversation that I've ever had with people, it's always coming to a realization that changing these names and equality and fairness were the realization. I've never had a conversation with anyone that said, I really thought about it. I grew and I had all these life experiences, and I realized that racist thoughts and ideologies were the right thing. So, moving forward as we're having these conversations and we're changing these names, I really challenge, the people who are unable to see how this could hurt other people and how being more inclusive is the way Prince William is going and how we want to see ourselves and how we want to raise up our children. That's all I wanted to say, and I give you back my time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Our next guest who's here on the call is Bethany Richard.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I'm Bethany Richard. I was born in DC, served as an officer in the Air Force, and I have 3 children here in Prince William County Schools. Some people want to rename the high school something admirable, and others want to save our Virginia history. Let's do both. Change the name to Jane S. Dean High School and uphold her lessons of family, education, and helping one another. Name this school after this local woman, Jane Sarepta Dean, also known as Jenny. She's our history. On July 21st, 1861, that day of the First Battle of Manassas, the same day that Thomas Stonewall Jackson got his nickname, Jenny was a slave, a young girl living nearby at the Sudley Ford, and she saw those Union soldiers march to battle that day. Only 4 years later, she was free. She was earning wages, working up in DC, and she worked to help her family, worked to help them buy their own land and their own farm. They weren't any longer property themselves, but now they owned property. This is our history. Yet she saw many others who needed help. Many had no family, no skills, no education. So she became a speaker, raising money in Washington, D.C. area to build churches and Sunday schools for her community, the freed slaves. Later, she went as far as New York and Boston to raise funds to build the Manassas Industrial School for colored youth. There, Blacks could learn the skills to earn a living: dressmaking, blacksmithing, carpentry, shoemaking, skills that they too could improve their position in life by earning an income. For decades, this was the only secondary education available to Blacks in Northern Virginia. This is our Northern Virginia history. Yes, the city of Manassas has an elementary school named after her, located beside the ruins of the industrial school she started. They are right to honor her. Now it's time for Prince William County Schools to honor her, to name a school after her, a high school. She reflects the best of our history.
Thank you very much.
Jenny Dean.
All right, our next guest is Rahil Sheikh. You need to unmute your mic and you may speak.
Hello, my name is Rahil Sheikh. I'm a resident of Coles District. I just wanted to come on this board and ask everyone to please change the name from Stonewall Jackson Middle and the high school. These Confederate generals, we cannot continue to celebrate their name and have them in our county. There is no hate in Prince William County. Anything, and again, it doesn't have to be a name of a person. I would like school board to come up with a different idea if possible to avoid these controversies in future. And I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much, sir.
Next guest is Karen Kura.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Karen Griffin Kura, a descendant of Lucinda Griffin. Lucinda was my 3-time great-grandmother. I have conducted extensive research on my family's history in Prince William County, namely the incredible story of Lucinda Lucy Griffin, the African-American slave girl at the Henry House at the First Battle of Manassas on July the 21st, 1861. Her story was never told from the perspective of a slave. Many of her descendants, even to this day, do not know who she is or about her heroic actions and sacrifices made during one of the darkest times in American history. There was only one First Battle of Manassas, and there was only one African-American slave girl. In this historic battle, Lucinda was wounded on Spring Hill on this fateful day. Lucinda Griffin has certainly paid it forward, and without any doubt, after you listen to today to the other testimonies about her, she certainly deserves to be honored for her bravery and contributions to the history of Manassas by naming one of these schools Lucinda Griffin High School or Lucinda Griffin Middle School. We have received over 700 signatures to rename this school. We need to encourage more African-American monuments and naming opportunities for positive role models and those that have shown their patriotic action. Our children today need role models they can be proud of. I truly am forever grateful for the inspiration she has given to me and to my family. My family has set up a Lucinda Griffin Foundation, which in part will keep her legacy alive for many generations to come. I would like to thank everyone that signed the petitions and donated to the Lucinda Griffin Foundation. We could not have done it without you. Thank you for your consideration in renaming a school in Prince William County in her honor. Thank you, sir and ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Our next guest is Curtis Porter.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Mr. Beavers. I'm assuming you all can hear me, is that correct? All right, I will be very brief in that I have written all the board members a letter. But my name is Curtis Porter. I'm a native of Prince William County with over 200 years of family history in this county. I heard my friend Monique Braxton on earlier. She was in that first wave to integrate Baldwin in first grade. I was in that first wave to integrate Bennett as a third grader, so we were at the same time. But it is great that the school board has decided to rename Stonewall Jackson High and Middle, to rename it from a traitor and having an opportunity to name it for a patriot. So I am requesting that you consider naming both schools after Carol and Celestine Braxton. You heard Monique tell you about Mr. Braxton, one of the Montfort Marines. Mrs. Braxton integrated that second wave of teachers, along with my mother, Lillian Porter, who both taught at Stonewall at Marsteller Middle School. So my request is that you consider naming both schools after Carol and Celestine Braxton. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your comments.
And our next guest is Langston Carter.
Hey, all hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
My name is Langston Carter. I am a former student, a longtime advocate for students.
We are having some trouble hearing you. I don't know if there's any way for you to turn your microphone up.
Is better?
Yes.
Okay. A lot of people will say that the only people impacted by this name are those who attend the school, but that's not true. I'm a descendant of one of Stonewall Jackson's slaves. Believe me when I say that I tell you I am sick and tired of people praising and worshiping a man who not only fought to keep my people enslaved, but who personally enslaved my ancestors. I'm sick and tired of people asking what it will cost to rename the school. How about we ask the cost of the labor my family was forced to do for Jackson? How about we ask the cost of the pain that was inflicted by his hand? How about we ask the cost of the war Jackson waged on our nation, our Commonwealth, and our county? What about the cost to students of color attending a school named after him? What about the cost of the miseducation of students, Blacks and whites, in casually normalizing a false history? Dr. Ibram Kendi is a graduate of Stonewall Jackson High School. He's nationally renowned. He's a nationally renowned historian and educator. And overall, he's one of the greatest scholars of our time. His books have driven the national discourse on race relations. Dr. Kendi is not only an SJHS alumni, but he is exactly the kind of person our school system should be honoring. He has the local ties, the stature, and the background to justify the school being named in his honor. And in stark contrast to Jackson, he is somebody that current students can look up to for inspiration and empowerment. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have Charles Ronco.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. As a teacher at Stonewall Jackson High School of 11 years now, I've had a lot of time to think about the name of our school. But I have to say that this is a difficult point. This is a hard thing to do. But in situations like this, I look at history and I look at regulation. Regulation 854-1, Part 3, Section F, subsection 3, states that names of deceased or living persons who have made local, state, or national service contributions, selection preference shall be given to those individuals who have made significant contributions to the field of education, especially within Prince William County, and that has to be Arthur Reed. He was a wonderful man, and I have to say that our legacy in Prince William County has a lot of room to grow. Of the schools that are named, a little bit of history of the schools that are named after people. Louise A. Benton is a white woman. Stuart M. Bevel is a white man. George M. Hampton was an African-American man, recently changed from Godwin Middle School, who was a racist white governor. Fred M. Lynn was a white man. Emmeline Harrison Marsteller Jr. was a white man. Ronald Reagan was a white man. Herbert J. Saunders was a white man. Thomas Jonathan Stonewall Jackson was a white man. Charles J. Colgan was a white man. Cecil D. Hilton was a white man. Eugenia Hillary Osborne was a white woman. Thomas Jonathan Stonewall Jackson, again, was a white man. Thomas Jefferson was a white man and slave owner. And Martin Gilmer Garber and Grover P. Manderfield were the white men who wanted a segregated school for white children. So I have to say that we already have a lot of schools named after white people, and we have no high schools named after anyone of a minority, and we have only one middle school who is named after a minority. I would say that this is a reckoning that we need to seriously consider, and Arthur Reed was an angel of a man. And I know that I will spend the rest of my life in Prince William County, and I will only be half of the educator that he was. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have Brittany Hadley.
Please go
Good
ahead.
evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. Can you hear me?
We sure can. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Brittany Hadley, and I'm speaking as an alumnus of Prince William County Schools and as a mother of a child who is zoned to attend Stonewall High. I am also speaking as an African-American woman who is heartbroken by the recent events involving Black individuals. But no, these occurrences are not new. What is new is the ability to record them. And in keeping in line with Superintendent Steve Walt's June 5th message regarding the county's commitment to combating racism, I recommend that we follow the paths that in 2016, when we renamed Godwin Middle as Hampton Middle after Georgie Hampton. This is especially so since during this time we should be reflecting on our thoughts, words, and actions. As such, I support the renaming of schools after individuals who reflect our nation's strength, which is diversity. For the high school, I recommend Ida B. Wells Barnett High School. The reason is simple. She worked to ensure improved education systems for minorities. She was a Black woman who advocated against lynching and penned articles criticizing the lack of education African-American children received. She was also an educator and journalist who worked tirelessly to gain justice for African-Americans. As an educator who fought for equal education for minorities, she would be a great namesake for Stonewall High, especially since the student body is overwhelmingly minority. Looking at my time, I'm going to have to just quickly state, I recommend Dolores Huerta for the middle school. She is a strong, celebrated Latina civil rights activist. Ultimately, I recommend the names of females for both schools, specifically minority females. Of the schools in Prince William County named after people, an overwhelming majority of them, as you just heard, are named after men. Females and racial minorities have and continue to contribute greatly to the country's success and should be honored and recognized. We can take a greater step towards eliminating racial gender bias and at the same time educate our students and members of the community about minorities who have helped to make a positive difference in the U.S. So I think we should name them after at least female minorities. And I thank you for your time and for this initiative.
Thank you so much.
Arthur Peters.
Hello, my name is Arthur Peterson. I've lived in Prince William County for more than 40 years. And of course, I've always been uncomfortable with the idea of naming a high school after Stonewall Jackson. However, even though you cannot dispute his courageousness and battle, he ultimately was on the wrong side. But I will point out one other thing, because you've gotten a lot of wonderful recommendations tonight that I've heard. I will point out that Prince William soil is soaked with the blood of the people who fought in the Civil War, thousands of people who came to end slavery and paid with their lives. It is not inappropriate to consider a historical link for one of our schools to remind students that people who came before them, long before them, were willing to pay great prices, even if they were not going to see the benefits of their work. So while I originally came up with the idea of names, I think you actually have a wonderful set of historical names attached to the battles in this part of Virginia, which is central to the whole war to choose from. I would also suggest you consider naming one of the schools not after a person, but something like Unification or something along those lines, because naming after people can be difficult, even if you do an excellent job. So you certainly have a tough job, but I think you've gotten some very thoughtful input from people. And I urge you to consider naming one of the schools with a strong historical link to a critical event that happened in our area. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Next guest is Demetrius Brown. Demetrius Brown, your mic is unmuted. All right.
Mr. Brown?
We will circle back with Mr. Brown. We will move to Rachel Fleischman.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Rachel Fleischman. I attended both Stonewall Middle School and Stonewall Jackson High School, class of 1987. I'm also the parent of a rising sophomore who is attending Stonewall as a transfer student for the IB program. We live in Bristow. It's time. It's time to change the name of our school. I'm a proud and active Stonewall alumna, but my pride doesn't come from the name. It comes from the friends I made, the experiences I had, the things I learned there. In all of the race discussions of the past few weeks, I've thought long and hard about my own understanding as a white woman of race and history and symbols. I have a lot more to learn, but I do understand that names and symbols tied to the Confederacy stand for the wrong things. Yes, they're part of our history, and we can't and shouldn't erase history. I keep hearing that term. It doesn't make it okay to claim history for a name that is painful or offensive to many people in our diverse community. I've been sickened by the tone deaf and sometimes outright racist statements of many of my fellow alumni from the 80s and earlier. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about the current and future student body and what Prince William County Schools stands for. In the words of Maya Angelou, do the best you can until you know better. When you know better, do better. As the parent of a current student, however, my biggest concern about renaming is cost. We have 2 aging school buildings that have a lot of needs already not being met in a community that is highly economically disadvantaged, with significantly fewer resources and community support compared to other newer schools and more affluent neighborhoods in the county. I've heard estimates of up to $1 million to change the names of both schools. I'm not convinced that everything on and in both buildings need to be changed immediately. I truly hope the school system can devise a phased and thoughtful plan to update the names in a way that minimizes expense, spreads the cost over time, and continues to direct much needed funds to the education needs of our current and future students. I heard a suggestion earlier today to consider Innovation Park High School, expanding Prince William County's Innovation Park, which is right over the railroad tracks from Stonewall Jackson High School, to include our school. Might open the opportunity for some public-private partnerships to get some funding that our schools really need. Something to consider. We need to think outside the box when it comes to these things. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next guest is EJ Scott.
Thank you very much for allowing me to speak today. My name is EJ Scott, and I am a member on the commission to build the Women's Monument in Richmond. I'm also on the commission to build a monument to Jenny Dean. So I know what monuments and the naming of everything means. And I wanted to share with you someone that no one, I'm sure, has ever even thought about. But he was a very intricate part of this community. He and his family have lived here for years. The name is William Lomax. He was formerly enslaved. He left and went to join the colored infantry in New York. He was paid $1,000 for his service. He came back here to Manassas and purchased 11 acres with that money. And he began to build homes for him and his family. Those homes still there today. We were able to refurbish those homes. And one of the places that he helped to build was called the Manassas Village Colored School. Now, this was a man who could not read or write. The first deed of his land he signed with an X. But he was so interested and he felt education was so important, he went ahead and helped to build this school. His son, Daniel, also helped to build the Manassas Industrial School, which we now know as Jenny Dean. His son, his great-grandson, fought in World War I, came home and was unable to attend the American Legion halls because they didn't let in Black people. So he and some other men petitioned the US government to build the very first American Legion hall that would allow Black people as members. That hall still stands today in Manassas. And so I believe that it would be a great honor to have this man whose family is so involved in school, and I can furnish you more information on him. William Lomax would be the name of one of those schools. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Our next guest present is Nicole King Campbell.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Nicole J. King Campbell. I'm an Air Force veteran, but more importantly, I'm the daughter of 2 students in the Prince William School District. I have a rising student at Stonewall Jackson High School, and I'm also the president of the PTSO. If you could take a few seconds and just close your eyes and try to remember when you were like 4 or 5 years old. Imagine then the joy you had, and then all of a sudden someone snatched that away from you. Emma was a slave that Thomas Jackson bought for his wife as a gift. And today, we want to have students go through the school with the name of someone who not only bought a 4-year-old as a gift, but had other slaves. He also was not a patriot. I made a decision to move out of the Stonewall district because I've heard, as someone mentioned, the negative things about Stonewall Jackson High School. But thank God my daughter was so much wiser than me and chose to go to Stonewall, which is an amazing school. I selected a name of Innovation High School, and someone today talked with me about making it Innovation Park. Over the past several months, we have worked with George Mason, we have worked with engineers and all other members of the community to make more positive impact. If we do Innovation Park or Innovation High School, I am more able to get sponsors to help us with the badly needed scholarships, help us fund some of the students who need food and need SAT prep support. We had $7,000 to give 18 students last year. 7,000. That's hardly enough. So changing the name to something like Innovation or Innovation Park will help us make a greater impact and recognize the amazing capabilities of the students and the wonderful work of the amazing staff. Thank you very much for your time.
And thank you very much.
Next up is Robert Swigert. Your mic is muted. You need to unmute that, and then you're free to adjust the board.
All right, thank you. All right, I had a much longer speech prepared. I didn't know it was going to be cut to 2 minutes, so I'm going to try to do this as quickly as I can. Prince William County Schools is ranked in the top 5 in Virginia among all public school systems, and we have to set an example. There are 632, I think, high schools in Virginia, of which Stonewall is currently ranked in the top 3rd. We have to set an example. Stonewall Jackson High, a former Time Magazine School of the Year, by the way, I was class of 91, has produced some of the best and brightest people that are leading our nation today. We have to set an example. Stonewall is a great place, a great facility, great faculty. They have great students and exceptional alumni. We have to set an example, but the name of the school has very little to do with the success of the students. The school's name is not the school is the people inside. Just like the church is not the building or the name, but rather the congregation. It's them that count. It's the people. Now, Thomas Jackson was not from Manassas. He wasn't even born in Virginia. The only time that he ever spent in Manassas was during 2 battles of Bull Run, and when his life ended, he wasn't even buried in Manassas. That ought to tell you right there how much regard he and his family had for our own hometown. The connection that anyone who is from Manassas, was educated in Manassas, and has spent their lives in Manassas, that has to Thomas Jackson is only the connection to a couple of battles that he fought to uphold a Southern Confederate way of life that supported slavery. Lucinda Griffin, by contrast, was an innocent 14-year-old slave child who, by the way, was owned by the Comptons. Lucinda risked her very own life and the care she risked her own life to care for Judith Henry and the Henry's children. Being not racist in 2020 is just simply not good enough. Renaming the high school where I graduated from with an advanced diploma is my opportunity to do only a fraction of the 1% of just 1% that needs to be done to make things right in the world.
If you could summarize, please.
I'm going to try.
We are out of time, so
understand. Just please. I'll close with this sentiment. If you are going to change the name of the school, then it should be something that fits. Lucinda Griffin is a fitting name. It's a considerate name. It's a timely name, and it's a name that we can all be proud of. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Robert Donaldson is our next guest.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Robert Donaldson, and I've been a social studies teacher at Stonewall Jackson for the past 15 years. and I'd like to submit the name James Robinson as a contender for either of the schools. James, Gentleman Jim Robinson, was born on what is now the Manassas battlefield to a white father and an enslaved mother. Prohibited from receiving an education, he was taught in secret by his half-sister's tutor and later took the surname Robinson in that tutor's honor. With his education and freedom, he became one of the wealthiest Black men in Virginia in a time when every imaginable barrier prevented Black success. He established his home and farm on land now occupied by the battlefield, married an enslaved woman, purchased her freedom and that of some of his own children. His home served as a hospital for Union soldiers, and he successfully sued the federal government for damages it suffered during the Civil War. His descendants resided at the Battlefield Robinson House until the 1990s, when it was destroyed in suspected arson, but many still call Manassas and Northern Virginia their home to this day. James Robinson's name is an excellent candidate to honor our schools. I and many of my anthropology students were unaware of his story until we took part in a study with Professor Rachel Watkins of American University this year, a project focused on telling untold stories and re-examining historical presentation at landmarks like the battlefield. In addition, Stonewall Middle School students completed a project on his life story in 2011, which is available on YouTube. James Robinson's story is local and inspirational. It's a story of hard work and education, of determination and success, despite insurmountable odds. It's a story that should be proudly commemorated and celebrated by our community and our schools. In addition, this name would also directly and meaningfully address issues of systemic racism and Black erasure that have led to this name change in the first place. For all these reasons, the name James, Gentleman Jim Robinson is eminently worthy of your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Right, next we have Warren Christian. Warren Christian, your mic is unmuted.
Mr. Christian?
All right, we'll circle back. We'll move on to our next. All right, one. Got a run of people not present. All right, Donald Height. Donald Height, your mic is on.
Good evening. My name is Donald Haight Jr., and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you tonight. Nowadays, positive role models are few and far between. True heroes and leaders with firm footing on the right side of history are more so hard to find. I submit to you that we have such a role model, a patriot, someone who has already endowed it into the history books. Her name is Lucinda Griffin. Lucinda Griffin has already proven herself, and she has been firmly placed in the Civil War history books in the Battle of Bull Run. She has earned the right to have the school named after her. I have walked many miles in the halls of Stonewall Jackson. I have run many laps around the track. I have played many downs and sweated on the field of Stonewall from 1974 to 1978. I look forward to walking on the grounds of Lucinda Griffin High School. Who among you can imagine being farmed out on a plantation laborer and being forced to work without compensation? Can you imagine the horrendous conditions that she has been forced to endure hour after hour, day after day, time and time again? I submit to you, your answer is no, you cannot. None of us can, but Lucinda Griffin can. This was the way of life in the 1800s, and at times totally unbearable. Imagine the stories and the truths that she could tell us today. But somehow she prevailed. Lucinda found a way to make the best of a bad situation. She had the mental toughness needed to survive, a trait still ingrained in the Griffin family today. Even though I have never met Lucinda, I still feel her energy, and it's her inspiration that gets me up in the morning when I'm already tired. And it's the drive that carries me through the long days and instills the hope for a better tomorrow. Yes, I truly feel Lucinda. Our children deserve to feel the same. They need to know the feeling of courage. They need to know with hard work and dedication, they too can achieve anything. They need to know that Lucinda Griffin's story And what better way is to name a high school in her honor? How can I repay her for all that she has given me? I cannot, because she has given me so much. What can I do but ask that you bless the grounds of Stonewall by naming it Lucinda Griffin High School. In the name of Lucinda Griffin and the spirit that she has given me, I ask that you rename Stonewall Jackson High to the Lucinda Griffin Senior High School. Respectfully, Donald Hay Jr., an alumnus of Stonewall Jackson High School, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Haight.
Our next guest is Gladys Kepler. Your mic is muted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Good, we can hear you.
Awesome. Good evening, everyone. My name is Gladys Kepler. I was a former ESOL teacher at Stonewall High School for 3 years and will be returning back to SJ as an ESOL teacher once again. We have the most wonderful, caring faculty, and our students are one-of-a-kind, amazing, ambitious students. As an ESOL teacher, I worked with many students who have migrated from all over the world to America seeking a better life. I have heard their stories of why they come: injustices in their countries, violence, poor education, poverty, etc. They have shared tears, shared joyful moments, and have accomplished the most challenging obstacles that an ELL could go through in a new country. Our school is represented by many cultures and countries from all over the world. The majority of our student population is represented by our Hispanic/Latino community. And I would love to see a name our students can feel represents them. A name that represents unity, equality, equity, and activism. Several names that come to mind are Sylvia Mendez, who was a civil rights activist and fought to desegregate schools in California. Sonia Sotomayor, our first Latina Supreme Court Justice. Cesar Chavez, who was a civil rights activist for migrant farmers. Roberto Clemente, a Hall of Famer in baseball, who was highly involved with the Latin American and Caribbean community. And the last one that I had was Rodolfo Gonzalez, who was an activist fighting equality and the right for Mexican Americans to access education and voting rights. All of these people represent a positive character, at the same time serve a good representation for our Latino community. I also want to say Arthur E. Reed would be a wonderful name, as he is an amazing colleague and person. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Right, our next guest is Shen McGee. Shen McGee, your mic is live. All right, we will skip and circle back with Shen. Samuel Chisholm, are you there? Samuel Chisholm? All right. How about Lisa McCarran Polgar?
Shoot, how do I get on here?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. Oh, wonderful. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. Hi, my name is Lisa McFerrin Polgar. I live in Prince William County in Dumfries. And I applaud the board's decision to change the name of both the middle school and the high school. General Stonewall Jackson fought to preserve the institution of slavery and to overthrow the government of the United States. Why should a school be named after such a symbol of hatred and treason? Is that the heritage we want to pass on to our children? When I walked into the Stonewall Jackson Middle School auditorium for a meeting this past February during Black History Month, I guess it was last year, I'm sorry, I felt like I had been hit in the face as I looked up at the portrait of Stonewall Jackson staring down at me. It was such a disturbing sight that images of children running into the same auditorium and seeing the same portrait ran through my head with horror. I thought, what message does that portrait and the name inscribed in the front of the building convey to a Black child, knowing that Stonewall Jackson fought to enslave the child's ancestors? Does that Black child's life matter? And is the psychological damage done to that child something that our community is willing to accept? George Floyd's brutal death has finally awakened America's consciousness and forced us to re-examine the racist norms that our society has for too long accepted. A Black child's life does matter, and these symbols elevating slavery need to be removed. What message does that portrait and the name inscribed in the front of the building convey to a white child, that it's okay to glorify those who fought to maintain enslaved Africans in bondage? Does it give that white child license to espouse hate? We should not hold up people who wanted to preserve slavery and who fought to overthrow our government for our children to emulate. I recommend to change the name of Stonewall Jackson Middle School to Laura Jackson Arnold, the sister of Stonewall Jackson, who was an abolitionist and condemned her brother for fighting for the Confederacy, or Douglas Wilder, the first elected African-American governor of the United States. I recommend renaming Stonewall Jackson High School to Dr. Ibrahim Kendi, a graduate of Stonewall Jackson High School, historian and educator and author and one of the world's leading anti-racist scholars. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think at this time, yeah, Mr. Townsend, please go ahead.
Yep. Sure, absolutely. So we'll circle back to anybody who's present but with some technical difficulties, starting with Lindsay Krause. Lindsay Krause, your mic is live. All right. We'll go to our next. Demetrius Brown. Demetrius Brown, your mic is live. Demetrius Brown, are you there? Okay. We will go to Warren Christian. Warren Christian, are you there?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Warren Christian. Good evening. I'm the great-great-grandson of Stonewall Jackson. About 3 years ago, my brother and I wrote an open letter to LeVar Stoney, the mayor of Richmond, asking him to remove the monument to Stonewall Jackson. And one of the greatest things that came through that letter was that we got to connect with one of the speakers earlier tonight, Langston Carter, who's been advocating to change the name of the high school for many years. And honestly, I think it's an embarrassment that the name has lasted this long. To have a majority Black school, Black and Latinx school, with the name of someone who fought to enslave their ancestors is shameful, and it should have been changed a long time ago. To paraphrase the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, though, the time's always right to do what's right. So it's time to correct this, even though it should have been done long ago. As Langston advocated, I think the high school's name should be changed to honor Dr. Ibram X. Kendi. In my mind, he's the preeminent scholar of race and racism in the United States currently. He's, as you've heard, a graduate of Stonewall Jackson High School. And it would be a very powerful symbol to rename the high school from someone who fought on the side of white supremacy and to continue the institution of slavery to someone who's now fighting against that legacy and fighting to end white supremacy, and really is just a great person and I think a treasure to the high school and should be honored in that way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Townsend, is there anyone else that you see on the list of folks that we've passed over that's still?
Two more. Sean McGee.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I attended Stonewall Middle School, finished in 1992, and finished 1996 Stonewall High School. I'd like to submit Ibram X. Kendi as the high school's new name and L. Douglas Wilder as the middle school's new name. And this is why. During Stonewall Jackson's life, enslaved Africans were only counted as 3/5 of a human being. I thought to myself, which 3 parts of us were counted? I imagined it was probably our arms, our legs, and our backs, because those were the most important portions of the body of an enslaved labor force brought to this country to perform the hardest of tasks and dirtiest of jobs. In all of my wondering, I know one portion of our body that was not counted, and that was our voices. As property, we were to be told what to do and not the reverse. I've come here tonight as 5/5 of a human being with the collective voice of my ancestors to say, we demand a change. Because, you see, we do not pay 3/5 of the state taxes on income, goods, and services. We pay 5/5. And as 4 human beings, we read that part of the Declaration of Independence that says we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, ain't I a man? Last time I checked, I was. The great Sojourner Truth posed the question, ain't I a woman? Well, then, seeing that we are men and women, we should not have to send our community's children to schools named after a man who regarded them as property, and in doing so, impeded their right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. He not only enslaved Africans himself, but laid down his life for that system which would have us infinitely bound. A system that answered all of our people's cries with "not now." I'm here to change "not now" to "right now." We want the school's name changed right now, because there's no way that an educated, civilized people should be willing to sacrifice the self-esteem of children by sending them to a school named after a person so adamantly opposed to their equal and equitable existence as human beings. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your words. Mr. Townsend?
Our last person we would like to check with is Samuel Chisholm. Samuel Chisholm, are you there? Samuel Chisholm, last try, Samuel Chisholm. Nope.
All right. So I think that does it for our list of folks who've signed up. There was one point I wanted to make while we still have our translator with us, and that's that tonight's presentation, at least the PowerPoint, is posted to our website in Spanish. And if our translator could do me the favor of saying that in Spanish so that our Spanish-speaking friends would be able to go to our website to see that presentation, that would be very helpful.
Sure, sir. Buenas noches. Quiero hacer de su conocimiento que la presentación del día de hoy está disponible en la página web de las escuelas para su lectura en el idioma español, así que pueden acceder y revisar toda la presentación de esta noche en español. Gracias.
Thank you, Mr. Osuna. So that completes our presentation and our comments for tonight. At this point, I'd like to offer our naming committees an opportunity to say any closing remarks if they would. I'll check first with Chairman at Large, Dr. Lateef. Do you have any comments, sir?
Just to thank you, Mr. Beavers, for putting this all together. I want to thank the committee for all the hard work that has gone into the beginning and the initiating of this process. And I want to thank all the community members who've come out tonight to speak and remind everyone that we'll be doing this again on Thursday. And you can get the information on our website. I want to thank our student member, who I think Mr. Beavers will introduce here shortly, Ben Kim, he's a student member of the school board. He also happens to be a rising senior at Stonewall Jackson High School. And so we look forward to working with him as well as we move through this time to do the renaming. I would like to just make one clarification, and I know this has been discussed. No money that will be used to name this school will be taken out of any projects that go into the renovations that are on scheduled for Stonewall, or the future renovations that our school board members would like to see there. I have committed with last year's boundaries, and many of these members that I'm looking at now were not on this board last year, but this board committed to increasing funding for economic disadvantaged students, increasing programs at Stonewall Jackson. And I've had conversations with the faculty over there and the students, and I remain committed. And I know the rest of the school board and the new members remain committed to our high school here. And so I don't want anyone out there to believe that the money that it would take to do this is going to come from anything that we were going to do with Stonewall or what we want to do in the future. And I want to emphasize that. And then I will see you all on Thursday. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Lateef. Next, we'll go to the Brentsville Magisterial District Representative, Ms. Adele Jackson.
I also want to thank the naming committee and Mr. Beavers and Mr. Townshend and the interpreter today. I want to thank everybody who called in, especially the students. It is my privilege to be your school board representative, and I'm so proud that everybody who called in, and I look forward to hearing from more of you later this week through email, Zoom, or through a meeting on Thursday. A huge thank you to Mr. Ben Kim, the student representative on the school board, for joining the call today. He was there the whole time, and I look forward to working with him also in this collaborative effort. I feel honored to listen to anybody who demanded change today, and I look forward to the next step in the process and collaborating with the community and the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jackson. Representing the Gainesville District, the home of Stonewall Middle School, Ms. Jennifer Wall.
Thank you, Mr. Beavers. I just want to thank Mr. Townsend, Mr. Beavers, our interpreter, members of the committee, Ms. Dagraper, Jackson, and Dr. Lateef, for all of your hard work on this issue and for the many hours spent thinking about this, answering emails, phone calls, everything. There's been a lot of work that the public doesn't see, but please know that we are very actively engaged in this issue. We are taking it very seriously. We are thinking and listening and deliberating and praying that we will come up with the right thing for our community. So I appreciate very much the members of our community tonight for your input. There were so many great comments and so many great suggestions. I feel inspired to become a greater knowledge or a greater student of history, especially local history, based on the things that you have said tonight. So thank you. I feel like I'm already on my way to becoming a continual student. I am committed to a fair and open process. I feel it's important that we keep an open mind, and I will continue to do that throughout this process. I look forward to hearing from more of our community on Thursday, especially if we could hear from some of our Spanish-speaking community. Since we have a translator available, it would be really great to hear from you as well. So maybe we can spread the word and involve this community a little bit more in our process. But thank you very much, everybody. We really, truly appreciate it. We're here to listen and we're here to learn. So and that's all I'm going to say. Thanks again.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Wall. And then representing the Coles District, Ms. Zargapur.
Thank you, Mr. Beavers and Ms. Wall, Dr. Lateef, Ms. Jackson for this naming committee opportunity. I have to say that I grew up here. I think a lot of you already knew that. And I am astounded at the lack of knowledge I have about my own home. My parents used to drag us camping all over the place. We would see every historical marker there ever was. Back in those days, you took a picture and you had to go take your film and get it developed. My dad took pictures of all kinds of cannons and battlefields and signs, and I didn't care when I was a kid. But I also don't remember these names that people were saying today were not part of the history I grew up with. And it's evident to me that we need to do a better job locally. I kept sitting here. I mean, look, I wrote down all these suggestions, and it just, I am so grateful for everybody who did this work to bring us the stories, which were told so well. I learned so much tonight. You made this job a little bit harder now because I'm like, oh yeah, I like all these names. But I'm really appreciative that you brought these stories forth. I'm really impressed with the students who came to speak. You were passionate. You were super focused on the message, and it was really meaningful. And you guys are the ones who are going to be leading this change. I'm committed to listening to the community. I'm going on. I'm sorry. It's been a long evening, but I'm just grateful for this evening. It was a really great opportunity to hear all these things that people were saying. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Argenpour. And then, Mr. Kim, if you're available, we would love to hear from you. And if you have your camera working, we'd love to see you too, if that's possible.
Hey, I think it's on. Yeah, something's up with my camera. I don't want to restart it to turn it on, but I am wearing a suit and tie right now. So it was nice hearing a lot of my fellow students talk tonight, and a lot of adults as well from the community. I have a survey of almost 2,000 Stonewall students, former and current, that I will be looking at and sharing with you all. And after tonight, I think I'll be deliberating a little bit more, maybe vetting down the numbers for a more specific or maybe county-wide survey. We'll just have to see. Yeah. As for my personal opinion, I am in favor of the Reed High School naming or the Commonwealth naming. Those are just my opinions. But as we heard tonight, there's just a lot of great ideas that people have. And I'm really encouraged in seeing all this activity in our community.
Very good. Thank you for being with us tonight, and congratulations on your selection as a student representative. I think that does it for us. As we said earlier, the Spanish version of the presentation's on our website. We'll be back on Thursday night, this Thursday night, 7 o'clock, with another version of this telecast. The opportunity to sign up and speak is available. That's in the web story, the link to sign up. So please take advantage of that and share with the naming committee your best ideas, and they'll be happy to hear those. So thank you all very much. We appreciate you being with us tonight, and thank you to Mr. Townsend and Mr. Stevens who helped us get this accomplished. So thank you to the naming committees, and that's all we have.